On this episode of Two Guys, One Truth. How much do you know about the Queen?
I don't like the British, I'll say it.
She is 95 after all.
And has anyone seen the Queen naked? She rides her little scooter around her castle, just gnawing at people that she keeps up there.
Yeah, who's gonna look? Who's gonna look in the Queen's freezer?
Or like, well, maybe not ass to mouth, mouth to ass, but like...
Who's to say there's not a second Voldemort face back there?
He's winking at the camera. Wow, she must have been human flesh. What's going on, YouTube? I am Jake Paul.
What's up, Paulers? Are they called Paulers?
Oh, I've never even gotten that into it.
Anyway, welcome, everybody. You are listening to Two Guys, One Truth, the only podcast that we have to produce in a secure location, lest the lizard people at the center of the hollow earth find out where we are.
They already know where I am, buddy.
I've got a red dot sight locked on my forehead at all times, so I've got to be really careful about this.
My FBI agent hates the amount of I have on my phone. I'm sorry, we'll cut that. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's a good way to start. You are joined by myself, Austin Harvey, and I'm here with my good pal Nick Sarnelli, and we're gonna be dropping some hot truth bombs your way.
All right, set me the scene. Today is episode 1, and Austin's gonna convince me try to convince me do that.
All right.
Do that over again.
All right, let me set the scene for you. Fresh off the back of World War I, the 1920s were a raucous, celebratory time of the United Kingdom. Just as America had our roaring 20s, so did the UK. The war had made people incredibly rich, and for the aristocracy and the wealthy, life had never been better. The cities were a smoky haze filled with nightclubs, jazz clubs, and cocktail bars. Girls were wearing shorter dresses, rocking trendy new haircuts, smoking, drinking, and driving motor cars. Guys were doing all these things too, but they'd been allowed to for years. Prosperity didn't just affect the nightlife either. The 1921 Education Act raised the school-leaving age to 14 and made state primary education free for all children, meaning any kid aged 5 or older was now expected to attend school every day from 9 to 4:30. Truly, everything was on the up and up for the United Kingdom. It didn't last long, though, and by 1925, Winston Churchill's reintroduction of the gold standard kept interest rates high, making UK exports expensive. On top of that, most of the UK's coal had been used up during the war, and Britain had to import more coal than it could mine. A lack of investment in new mass production techniques sealed the UK's fate, and the economy nosedived, bringing in depression, poverty, and massive unemployment, all leading to the Great Strike in the spring of 1926. During this time, the Duke and Duchess of York gave birth to their first child, a daughter they named Elizabeth. But even for royalty, not everything was peachy. In 1936, King Edward VIII, the Duke of York's brother, proposed to marry an American socialite named Wallace Simpson, whom he met 5 years earlier in 1931 when he was still the Prince of Wales. In 1934, Edward and Wallace became lovers, and the establishment had them followed and closely watched. When Edward announced his proposal in 1936, the establishment couldn't bear the thought of an American queen, let alone one who had been divorced twice. After all, Edward was now the head of the Church of England, and according to their rules, a divorced woman couldn't remarry unless her ex-spouse was dead. Both of Simpsons were, unfortunately, alive. Edward didn't care, however, and his strong love for Simpson led him to abdicating his throne in December 1936, leaving his brother Albert, the Duke of York, to take over, and young Elizabeth to become the heir presumptive. When her father died in February of 1952, the 25-year-old Elizabeth ascended to the throne, becoming Queen Regent in the UK, where she has remained ever since.
25?
Yeah, 25 years old, and she's 95 now, so 70 years.
Of reign.
It's insane. And there's been a lot of buzz with the royal family lately between Prince Albert's connection to Jeffrey Epstein and then Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's departure from the royal family. And it's got a lot of people wondering, what other skeletons are the British royal family hiding in their closets? Well, Nick, as it turns out, there might be so many skeletons that the royal family is running out of closets to hide them in, because in January of 2012, police discovered human remains on the grounds of a vacation retreat where the Queen and the royal family spent the holidays, only a mile from the entrance to Sandringham Estate. The remains were found in Prince Philip's favorite hunting spot. Now, it could just be coincidence. After all, there's a small village nearby, and it's possible the murderer could have lived there. But we don't believe in coincidences here. Just cold, hard facts. And the fact is that British royalty has a known history of devouring human flesh.
It's a known history.
A known history of it.
All right. Well, go on.
Are you with me so far?
I mean...
So, this guy, Dr. Richard Sugg, he's one of the researchers behind a book called Mummies, Cannibals, and Vampires. And he talked with the Daily Mail about the practice. And he said, gotta do my British accent.
The human body has been widely used as a therapeutic agent with the most popular treatments involving flesh, bone, or blood. Whilst corpse medicine has sometimes been presented as a medieval therapy, it was at its height during the social and scientific revolutions of early modern Britain. It survived well into the 18th century, and amongst the poor it lingered quite stubbornly on into the time of Queen Victoria. In the heyday of medicinal cannibalism, bodies and bones were routinely taken from Egyptian tombs and European graveyards. Not only that, but some way into the 18th century, one of the biggest imports from Ireland to Britain was human skulls.
Now, Dr. Snug also said the last recorded instance of this practice was in Germany in 1865. But there's a key word in what he said, and that's recorded instance. Is it possible that the royalty are still practicing some form of medicinal cannibalism, keeping it hush-hush? Could the Queen herself be a cannibal? She is 95 after all, and still impeccably healthy. It sounds crazy. But check this out. In 1973, exiled cultural philosopher Hubert Humdinger...
Sorry.
No, that's his name.
Humdinger.
He called the Queen violently vibrant and packed with more energy than the sun. At that point, the Queen was she was like 47, so she's in her late 40s. She wasn't really old, so his comment isn't that outrageous. But that same year, he wrote an article for the magazine We Royalty, in which he said, "She must eat human flesh to be so vivacious. There's an immense amount of spiritual energy in human muscle." And he also hinted at the royal family engaging in satanic rituals and bloodlust.
Well, geez, he just came out and said it. He's like winking at the camera. He's winking at the camera. Wow, she must have eaten human flesh.
He's not subtle at all. He basically walked in with he basically walked in with those things that the guys at the airports have, like the two glowing sticks, and like waved them at a chamber that said like human meat storage.
If you use the term spiritual energy and you're not talking about power buffs in like an anime, there's something not right. No one says that. Spiritual energy and human muscle. Human muscle specifically too. So it's one thing for him to say she must eat human flesh to be so vivacious. You know, a reporter would use hyperboles like that and use this kind of terminology, but then he elaborates in a really weird, like, there is an immense amount of spirit. Like, it's almost like she must eat human flesh to be so vivacious is like a little ha ha ha. But then he goes, "There's an immense amount of spiritual energy in human flesh."
Yeah, it's like
So
it's
wait
like
a
you're
minute.
not just hey, you're not just waxing poetic here. Like, also, how does he know that?
Well,
What's Humdinger getting up to on the weekends?
blood orgies with the royal family.
That's what's up. He's writing about it, not to disparage the queen, not to call her out. He's writing about it to let the people know. He's like, you guys got to start eating each other.
All right, I'm I'm following. I'm following.
Okay.
I'm not. This is
Okay.
in the list that we created with a shit ton of conspiracy theories. Well, a list that Austin created. I looked at it. This one, I gotta say, when you first told me, I was like, okay, sure. But Humdinger, that's a real Humdinger. I don't know, you know.
That needs to start. We need to start saying that more. Being like, man, that's a real Humdinger. It is. Like, you can't argue with it.
I wonder if Humdinger is a noun, a remarkable or outstanding person or thing of its kind.
So another story I found happened in 2012, and there was a serviceman, and he was called to the Queen's castle because she was having an electrical issue with a refrigerator. And he got there, and he found a nest of faulty wiring behind the fridge that he said would require his entire team to fix. But it wasn't the only thing he found. He opened the Queen's private freezer.
Wait, is her private freezer?
It's her private freezer. It's not.
Is it
It says
attached to the fridge or like?
I think it was near the fridge. But
Oh, so like one of those big ones that are like.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm thinking it's not so much a freezer as it is like an entirely separate room that is very cold.
Oh yeah, because it's a castle, and yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah, so we're not talking like
the McDonald's freezer.
yeah, we're not talking like something you put in your basement and you
Yeah,
store
this is
your
the Queen's freezer.
turkey in. Yeah, this is the Queen's freezer. This thing, I mean, it's basically the castle from Frozen.
Okay, all right.
So this serviceman who asked to not be named, he says,
I wanted to check how chilled it was. I wasn't sure the freezer was getting enough juice to keep everything as cold as it needed to.
but when he opened the door, he saw strips of flayed meat carefully packaged in see-through wrap. And he returned to the 3 constables who'd been assigned to watch over him, and he asked them to come check out the freezer as well. And the constables also had some weird things to say. One of them said,
I thought he'd started a fire or something because it looked like he'd seen Queen Bloody Mary.
another constable said,
It was like taking a peek at a damned undies. We were thinking, this had better be good.
and Nick, it was better than good. When they got there, they pulled out a frozen arm, a leg, and then a piece of a man's chest.
One arm, one
And
leg,
eventually-
and a piece of a chest.
And a piece, not a whole chest, but a piece
Sure,
of a chest.
I mean it's hard to
like one nipple.
one nipple in the freezer, frozen nipple.
One nipple there. And eventually they realized they were looking at a human body.
Well, some of a human body, or was it all in there?
I don't know.
Enough of a human body.
And enough, I mean, I think after the arm, I'd have been like, this is a man's arm.
And like a fully intact arm too, like not like very clearly.
Yeah,
an
not
arm.
not like, oh, is that... I mean, at least that's what I'm imagining. I'm not imagining just like the forearm or bicep where you're like, well, I mean, it looks kind of like an arm, but it could be anything. I'm imagining like 5 fingers, a palm, like an elbow.
Not even like hidden, just like under the flayed meat, just
Yeah, it was just in there.
a bite, not wrapped in anything. Just here's an arm.
Yeah, no, it's the Queen's freezer. Why are you snooping?
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, who's
Fair
gonna
enough.
Look? Who's gonna look in the queen's freezer?
Well, she called them specifically for an electrical. Well, I guess it was for the fridge, not the freezer. Right?
It was for the fridge, so this guy was out of line. And the constables should have been in the room with him, but they were in the other room, complaining about being overworked and underpaid. Which, like, I hear you, brother. So this is what one of the constables had to say about finding these remains.
Normally, we check the missing persons list, take DNA samples, and immediately detain the suspect with evidence in a freezer. What we got here is a series of pieces from a white male. No head, no hands or feet. But the Queen has special privileges. Throughout history, it's always kind of been that way. You can't prosecute the Queen for having a strange habit. I'm sure she got these parts legally somewhere overseas. At any rate, we aren't going to look into it. I know the Yankees will have a fit, but the Queen is God's monarchy. She's God's bride.
Wow, so they just know to shut the up and move on.
That's pretty much what's going on. Is they're like, well,
She's the queen.
she's the queen.
It's different.
So, and I like that he like takes the detour to say like, I'm sure she just got these shipped in legally from somewhere else.
An arms dealer.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's where's this information from with the constables?
So I was a bit worried you were gonna ask.
I made it up.
It's all fabricated. No. I gotta look up the name of the website. It was called. Well, the first source I found this from was a guy's Prezi PowerPoint, trying to prove this conspiracy theory, which I was like, that's not a reliable source. So then I went looking for more, and I found this website. Why can't I find this again? This is wait.
Starting to get
Am I going crazy?
real fishy around here.
Was this not a real website? Where did I read
Did
all
you
this
dream
information? Why? Yeah, wait, yeah, I can check my history.
All right, so far you have a maybe story and a interesting quote from a guy.
Yes, that is where I'm at right now. Okay, Dear Dirty America. That is the website that I found this on. It's called Dear Dirty America. The article was called Queen Elizabeth II Confirmed Cannibal.
Confirmed!
Confirmed Cannibal.
All right, that's good enough for me.
It also links to an article, which I'll get into this in a bit, but improvements in health, exactly the reason Queen Elizabeth II feasts on young blood.
Do we know, like, what parameters she has, or she just eats flesh?
So there is a weird bit of science behind this.
Okay, I was hoping
potential
so, because
cannibalism.
if that's the one thing that would I'm as skeptical as I am. I also am not I'm a kind of person that would be like, you know what? I keep an open mind. Like if someone told me, yeah, this is how it is, like, yeah, all right, probably. I've heard crazier things.
So there is another account of someone not necessarily experiencing the Queen's cannibalistic side, but sort of disrupting the image that we have of the Queen because she's 95 years old. She's been doing this for a while. And in public, the Queen's always fairly like prim and proper and, you know, regal. Like she looks like a queen. But it's like everyone always says. We don't really know what's going on behind closed doors. And the English monarchy has kind of a weird past. strange practices, inbreeding. Henry VIII created a church so that he could divorce his wife and marry someone else.
List goes on.
Like,
yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely. And like, as much as in America with the conspiracies about our government and stuff, I feel like we kind of blew the top off a lot of that shit. Like, everyone just kind of knows we're being spied on, and we're like, yeah, it's just kind of how it is.
yeah.
So, but in England, it's like you don't know what's going on back there, especially with like still having a monarchy like that.
Right, and yeah, the royal family's weird, and now we know a little bit racist also, which is not what you want from your leaders. So there's another story. This guy was a carpenter. His name was John Bellows, and he worked in the Queen's Castle in the early 90s, which was a really terrible time for the Queen. She used to refer to 1992 as the worst year of her life because both of her sons got divorced, and then a massive fire tore through a section of the castle. So this is when Bellows and his team are doing renovations. And he had a couple things to say that kind of disrupt, they change our image of the Queen. Bellows said,
"She's really bloody crazy. Sometimes she's without any family or friends in that huge castle. We'd be working in the early 90s, and we'd hear manic shouts, jolly loud animal screams."
And he also mentioned that the Queen used to like to drive an electric power scooter around the castle at ridiculously high speeds, to the point that like her hair would be blowing in the breeze, in the drift created from how fast she was going around the castle. And she can walk. It's not like the Queen has a leg injury. So this is very unnecessary. And he said it was such a frequent fear of his that now he tenses up at the sound of an electric scooter. She was zooming.
Well, it was a big castle. I guess if I lived in a big castle when electric scooters were a thing, I guess I'd do the same.
Right?
thing.
Yeah. I can't falter for it, but
maybe
it
not
is
if I
very
was
different.
a queen, but yeah, that's.
Yeah, it's very different from, you imagine the Queen walks everywhere with her back perfectly straight and like a book balanced on her head. And instead she's kind of
She'd be zooming
zipping around Mario Kart style, throwing green turtle shells at her servants. But that wasn't the weirdest thing that John Bellows said. In an interview, Bellows said,
"Oh, I'd hate to get bitten by the Queen. Her chompers remind me of that savage character in Moby Dick, whose teeth were pin-like and sharpened to tear into any kind of meat. What does she do with those things? Did she file them like that?"
which I've never looked closely at the Queen's teeth to notice how jagged and sharp they are.
I'm looking at them right now, and for Jesus, that's not good at all. Like, those are the kind of teeth that someone would use to be able to eat an arm.
Now I'm looking. Oh wow. Yeah, those things.
The
are,
British aren't known for their pristine teeth, but this is.
Yeah, no, they're known for actually having pretty terrible teeth, but she is the Queen. I feel like she could get that sorted out.
Yuck. I gotta stop looking at this.
For anyone listening who's not seeing what we're seeing, just Google Queen Elizabeth teeth.
You'll see exactly what you need to see.
So that was John Bellows' account of what it was like working in the Queen's castle. She's apparently a very loud, chaotic woman with frightening teeth. And unfortunately, that is the last time we've ever heard of John Bellows, because he mysteriously drowned in 2011.
Sounds like someone's trying to get his mouth shut.
A bit fishy. I promised you there was some scientific
Right.
research to back this up. So I actually found an article from the LA Times, which is like a fairly reputable source.
Yeah.
Probably more so than Dear Dirty America.
I don't know about that.
But the article that I read, it focused on a research study that was being conducted by Harvard biologists. And the tagline for the article was, "Can an infusion of young blood reverse the loss of physical and mental ability in old age?" So nearly 2 decades ago, so the early 2000s, researchers found that if they surgically conjoined an old mouse and a young mouse, the old mouse experienced improved stem cell function. I don't know why they were sewing mice together, but that's what they found. I don't know what mad scientist bullshit they were getting up to that they decided to surgically connect mice.
So they connected them like human centipede style?
I hope not. Really?
Or well, maybe not ass to mouth, mouth to ass, but like conjoined, maybe not human centipede, but conjoined.
Yeah,
twin,
that's right. Like,
so it wasn't like they were putting the cells of a young one in an old one.
Right? No, yeah, they
literally
weren't like
a combination.
splicing DNA or taking blood samples and then injecting. They were sewing them together. They were making 2-headed rat dolls.
But the old half was actually improving health-wise because of the...
Yeah, it was doing better. It was, they found out that, like, the blood vessels were healing. It was reversing age-related heart enlargement. And it was helping old mice generate new cells to heal parts of their body. And they identified a protein, it has a terrible name. They just call it They call it growth differentiation factor 11, but shorten it to GDF11, which apparently young mice have an abundance of. And then as they get older, that protein amount decreases. And mice also lose some mental ability as they age because their blood vessels deteriorate, and that includes losing their ability to smell. And the way they found that out was that young mice avoided the smell of mint, but old mice didn't. So then they theorized that if they could inject some of GDF11 into old mice, it could restore their sense of smell. And they were right. So this isn't them sewing anymore. This is them actually just taking blood samples from mouse to mouse. They're like, well, if it works when we do this, we know it's because of this protein. So maybe instead of Frankensteining these mice, we just take a little blood from one, put it in the other one. And when they did that, they saw that the older mice had increased strength and endurance. It reversed age-related muscle dysfunction. One of the researchers who was a Stanford neurology professor, his name is Tony Weiss-Carre. I hope I'm saying that right. He said it was as if the old brains were recharged by young blood. This is researchers from Harvard and from Stanford doing these experiments in mice. And if Flowers from Algernon taught us anything, it's that if you can do it to a mouse, you can do it to a human.
It's true. You can't both.
So, could this possibly be an explanation as to why the queen would eat people? After all, she's been the monarch for 70 years, and despite her age, seems completely coherent and relatively youthful, and she has outlived some of her children. Granted, one of them was Princess Diana, but...
Yeah, that's not really her fault.
Doesn't really count if someone's assassinated. But still, she's 95 years old, and she doesn't show any signs of quitting. Is it because she's consuming young blood and it's restoring her vitality?
All right. On the side of believing this, I will say the fact that it's like that the British and the royal family and the church have all these secrets, and it's like almost like a household known thing at this point. That I mean, you've been alive for that long, 95 years. You've seen a lot of shit. The way that monarchs are like just treat kings, queens, that sort of stuff in general, in this weird godly light, and this different plane of existence that even like nerfs celebrity status. I can believe that some weird shit that you would never, ever, 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 ever think could happen in real life would happen. And they've had years and years to do it and hide it. That makes sense to me. I'm on board with that.
Okay, all right.
On the other hand, shit, man, I might think she's a cannibal.
Like, all right, looking at this practically,
She's
actually,
a cannibal.
good point.
Look at those teeth. Look at that. I mean, heard weird scream. She rides her little scooter around her castle, just gnawing at people that she keeps up there. I guess the whole thing is that the way it's framed, like she eats people like she's eating people, like Green Inferno style, like Eli Roth movies, like chomping into them. But it's not really. If she is getting some sort of youth, scientifically spliced to her, it's probably a lot more calculated than just her being a savage flesh.
That's fair. That's fair. She's probably not making foot tacos and sitting down to.
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of science behind foot tacos. Let's not disregard foot tacos immediately.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. If they can inject these proteins into mice, who's to say they couldn't do that with the queen as well?
You think that's why Mickey's a mouse?
That is
Opening up a whole other can of worms.
I feel like we can come back to that. There's so many weird Disney conspiracies. But yeah, man, I mean, I feel like everything I said you were pretty skeptical about until you saw her teeth. And I feel like that was really the point.
The kicker, but it's seeing is believing, and like those aren't just like Austin Power bad teeth. Those are like MacLeod teeth.
That's fair, and they are very stained teeth as well.
Yeah, with blood.
Possibly.
Possibly.
They say that it's tea. They say it's tea stains, but we know the truth.
And has anyone seen the Queen naked?
Presumably, but not.
Well, I'm on record.
Not on record. But someone must.
Because, like, who knows what weird slashes or gashes or stitches or weird inserts that she could have, like, a weird, like, stem cell. What are those? Siamese twin that gives her nutrients.
Oh, very.
You know what I mean?
What's the movie?
Malignant.
Yeah, very Malignant style. That she is always wearing a hat out in public. So, who's to say there's not a second Voldemort face back there?
Every picture of her, she's very covered up.
That's true. Yeah, we attribute it to modesty, but it could just be that she's trying to hide some stuff.
Anyone who lives that old is questionable.
Yeah, anyone who lives that old and isn't like in a home, you got to look out.
Betty White too, rest her soul.
I know she made it to what, 99, right?
Yeah, 99. That's older than the Queen.
That is older than the Queen.
So she could have ate people too. That's more believable than living to 100.
That's true. Nobody should live to be that old. I want to make it to the ripe age of 40 and then kill myself.
27, I'm calling it quits.
27.
I got a couple months.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's coming up. That's not...
Well, you know, Jim Morrison, isn't 27 that magical age that all those artists died?
It is. It is, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse.
Nick Sarnelli.
But all right, so that is That's 2 yeses from us.
That's
The
a
queen
double.
is a
That's a
cannibal.
double. Yeah, I believe that she's a cannibal more than I don't believe that she's a cannibal.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It really is. It's the teeth.
That's a big driving force for me. And then you throw the other stuff in there, like the story about the guys with the arm and the freezer, give or take. Like if that's real, maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. But the fact that it's even a story regarding her specifically means that people know.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like this. There's not a lot of information out there about this one, which at first made me think like, oh, it's probably not true, because like if it was like, you'd think everyone would be talking about it if that was confirmed. But then I was like, no, they wouldn't let that happen. The fact that the information's like you could find like so much stuff about how like 9/11 was an inside job, because like everyone's talking about it, but it's to a point where you're like, that's kind of ridiculous, right? Because like so many people are talking about it. Like if that was true, like the government would shut that down. But like
plus, yeah, it seems like while Americans are very on the face about, oh, the government's doing this, the government's doing that, this is fucked up, this is a conspiracy. Over there, they're like modest about it, and they know like, oh, you don't talk about this stuff, or you don't speak ill of the queen. This is the queen. Like it's a lot different than viewing a democratic government.
Yeah, and they have a democracy that they can still criticize, like with like Boris Johnson and Brexit. And
Right. But
so like they still get that. But yeah, the monarchy, they're just doing their own thing.
Yeah, I mean, they view these like in a godly manner. They view the queen, so it's like when you know not to like speak ill of a mob boss in a certain part of town or something, or like a gang times 100. Like you just stay the fuck away from that.
Right, because what's gonna happen if you're sitting there saying bad stuff about the queen? Well, you're gonna end up on her dinner plate.
You're gonna accidentally drown.
I forget where he drowned, but I think it was like a fountain or something. Like it wasn't even like like the river. It was like he tripped,
bashed his head.
Yeah. And also the human remains on the English royal family's estate, which we kind of just moved past that part. But why were there human remains there?
Yeah, that's pretty sketchy. I mean, it was on the actual ground. So there's some buried out in the front yard and in a freezer. That's 2 instances of human body parts.
Right, and that one I got from ABC News. So that was like,
yeah,
that was like a real news story.
Right. Shit. Yeah, Queen's a cannibal. Stay away.
Yeah, for sure, 100%.
She makes it to 100. It's confirmed.
Yeah, we'll circle back on this in 5 years. Even if the podcast doesn't last that long, we'll put out one more episode. It's just
like, oh, by the way, she turned 100.
She's 100. Queen's 100th birthday celebration.
Well,
all right. I guess that's that. We're off to a strong start.
Well, we'll call it there. Queen's a cannibal. Tune in next week, where I will convince Austin that milk is gay. Sorry.
You say that milk is gay?
Milk is gay.
Oh, I thought there was. I didn't hear that.
You were waiting for.
I was like, milk's a what? Where are you going with that? Oh,
why is my butthole always itchy?
The government is putting itch powder in my underwear.
Dude, I believe that. I absolutely believe that.
That wouldn't even surprise me. Well, all right, guys. Hey, thanks for listening. If you listened, if you didn't, you're not hearing this part. So
that's fair.
So if you enjoyed it, you give us the old, give us a 5 stars or a thumbs up or whatever it is. And follow us on the social media. It's at 2 Guys 1 Truth with the numbers not all spelled out. And otherwise we'll see you next time.
Praise the Queen.
Don't sleep, because that's when they implant
Butt itch powder.
stuff in your head. That's when they put the butt itch powder in your underwear. Is when you're
The
sleeping.
butt itch fairy comes in through your windowsill and gives you, all right, bye.